The beginning of the war, June 22nd, 1941. Introduction. The morning of June 22nd, 1941, entered history as the day when the world was once again drawn into one of the most destructive conflicts. The Great Patriotic War, a central part of World War II, began suddenly, brutally, and with colossal consequences. This narrative describes in detail and step by step the events that led to the war, the first hours of the attack, the country's reaction, the situation at the front, and the fates of the people caught in its path. An international situation before the war. By early 1941, Europe had already been at war for nearly 2 years. Germany, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, had steadily expanded its influence. 1938. Anschluss of Austria. Later, the occupation of Czechoslovakia. September 1939, Germany's invasion of Poland, the beginning of World War II. Spring 1940, the rapid defeat of France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. 1940 to 1941, the occupation of Denmark, Norway, Yugoslavia, and Greece. Germany became the dominant military power in Europe. It became clear, after the defeat of the West, the next step would be the East. Relations between the USSR and Germany before the war. Despite the 1939 Non-Aggression Pact, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, relations between the two countries remained tense. Neither Hitler nor the Soviet leadership trusted each other. Behind the scenes, Germany moved troops to the Soviet border under the pretext of preparing for an invasion of England. Soviet intelligence regularly reported a possible German attack. However, no one could name the exact date. Berlin kept its plans strictly secret. In autumn 1940, Hitler signed the directive to prepare for the invasion of the USSR, Operation Barbarossa. From that moment, the war became inevitable. On the eve of the catastrophe, the USSR's situation. Despite the growing threat, the Soviet Union was not fully prepared for a massive, wide-scale war. Main problems. The rearmament of the military had not yet been completed. Many troops were still moving or were stationed in the scattered formations. The command did not expect a strike early on June 22nd. The Germans had a powerful force, superior to the Soviet side in organization and experience. Yet the Red Army was enormous. Millions of soldiers, many tanks, aircraft, and artillery. But much of its strength was dispersed and had not moved to full combat readiness. The night of June 21st to 22nd, 1941. The night was tense. On the Western Soviet border, strange events were taking place. Germans removed barriers on their side. Enemy troops moved into attack positions. Luftwaffe reconnaissance aircraft violated Soviet airspace. Movement of German military columns increased along the front. Soviet commanders reported suspicious activity, but until the last moment, there was no certainty that the attack would begin that very day. 0300, German sabotage groups took positions. 0315, bridges began to be blown up. 0330, tank engines started. 0350, German pilots received their final order. 4 a.m., the beginning of the invasion. June 22nd, 1941, between 3:55 and 4 Moscow time, Germany attacked the Soviet Union. Without a declaration of war, without warning, simultaneously along the entire vast front, from the Baltic to the Black Sea. The first targets included Brest Fortress, the Baltic region, Western Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, the Karelian Isthmus. The first German actions, a massive artillery barrage on Soviet positions, airstrikes on airfields, bridges, and headquarters, crossing the border with armored spearheads. The goal was clear: Destroy the Soviet forces in the first weeks and capture Moscow. The attack on Brest Fortress. One of the main initial targets was Brest Fortress, a symbol of the war's beginning. At 4 a.m., German forces opened intense fire. Within minutes, artillery destroyed most of the buildings inside the fortress. But the garrison survived. A heroic defense began, lasting for weeks. Though the Germans had expected to take it within hours, the inscription, "I am dying, but I do not surrender," became a symbol of the defenders' resilience. Luftwaffe airstrikes. German aircraft attacked airfields, railroads, ammunition depots, command posts, communication hubs, major cities, Minsk, Kyiv, Sevastopol, Riga. In the first hours, the USSR lost hundreds of aircraft, many of them destroyed on the ground before they could take off. For the Soviet command, this was a powerful blow. Molotov's speech. At 12 o'clock on June 22nd, the country learned of the war officially. People heard the radio address of Vyacheslav Molotov, the Soviet Commissar for Foreign Affairs. Today at 4 o'clock in the morning, without declaring war, German forces attacked our country. This speech echoed throughout the Soviet Union. Millions of people heard for the first time that the war had become a reality. People's reaction. Across the entire country, the same scenes unfolded. People gathered around radios. Men headed to enlistment offices. Women and children cried as they said goodbye to loved ones. Factories received orders to switch to wartime production. Urban and rural residents began preparing for evacuation. Mobilization began. Millions of Soviet citizens joined the People's Militia. The first operations of the Wehrmacht Germany launched the offensive with three main army groups. Army Group North Goal, Leningrad. Hitler wanted to encircle and destroy the city, a symbol of Russian culture. Army Group Center Goal, Moscow. The most powerful concentration of tanks and motorized units. Army Group South Goal, Ukraine, Donbass, Crimea, regions with major industrial and agricultural importance. Germany expected a lightning war. Blitzkrieg. The first weeks of the war. The first weeks were extremely difficult. Soviet forces suffered heavy losses. Germans advanced tens of kilometers into Soviet territory. Minsk was encircled by June 26th. Thousands of soldiers were captured due to disrupted command. Many units retreated without ammunition or communication. But despite German successes, Soviet troops resisted fiercely. Heroism of the first day's history has preserved many examples. Border guards who held out even in full encirclement, tank crews who rammed enemy vehicles, pilots who fought against overwhelming odds, sailors of the Black Sea and Baltic fleets, partisans who began their struggle as early as June. Each of these episodes is part of the wider tragedy and heroism of the people. Global reaction after the German attack on the USSR. The United Kingdom immediately declared its support. The United States began aiding the USSR through the Lend-Lease program. Germany proclaimed it was leading a crusade against Bolshevism. From that moment, the war truly became global. Results of the first months. Although the Germans advanced rapidly, their blitzkrieg plans soon began to falter. Soviet reserves kept arriving. The Germans failed to completely destroy Soviet aviation. The population united. Industrial plants were evacuated to the Urals and Siberia. The Red Army learned, reorganized, and prepared for a long war. The beginning of the war became the country's hardest trial. The significance of June 22nd, 1941. This day changed the fate of millions. It became the beginning of 4 years of struggle, a tragedy costing tens of millions of lives, a historical lesson, a symbol of courage and resilience, one of the key dates of the 20th century. The war began suddenly, brutally, swiftly, But despite enormous losses and severe defeats, the country endured. Conclusion. The beginning of the war is not only dry dates and facts, it is the story of human lives. Fear, pain, tension, and at the same time courage, unity, and the willingness to defend the homeland. The history of June 22, 1941, is a reminder of the price paid for victory.